Hello, everyone. I hope you had a lovely lunch and not feeling sleepy now. So hopefully my slides would wake you up. So I can see. Hello, welcome. So I'll give you an introduction why I choose this title. It's simply because my background is in product management. So for me, it has always been that when we talk about APIs, and when I attend the API Days conference, there's a lot of technical jargons everywhere. Everyone's like this code and REST API and everything. And for me, it's like, why can't we just explain APIs in simple words? What happens when you create your APIs and when you put it up on the developer portal? Who's using it? Is anyone actually using it? In my current company as well, we have a developer portal, and these are the questions which every day I have to ask. Okay, why would someone go to this website and even just look at the documents, and still they are calling us? So looking at all these factors, I said, okay, let's keep it a little mysterious as well, and see what the audience have to say, what you all think about it. Just a quick introduction. So I have over 17 plus years of professional experience. I'm currently working in the fintech domain. I am based out of Munich, Germany. Besides working as a product manager, in my current company, I was also the API evangelist a few years ago. So when I joined my company, we manufacture bank cards and passports and banknotes. So explaining APIs to them was one of the most difficult tasks, especially to a wider German audience who is very traditionally into security and still preferring into going and paying by cash. So explaining them how APIs could improve the life of the payment system, how APIs could help their hardware products to be more digitalized, how they could evaluate and bring out their hardware products in a more phygital journey. So that's when, in my job, I had to talk about APIs. So I took the example from MuleSoft, which you might have seen on YouTube, where they explain what is API and compare it as someone going to a restaurant and asking the waiter to order the food. And long story short, after so many years, we finally have developer portal. We offer APIs to big banks all around the world. We also offer them APIs which shows where the card is the card received by the end users, and so on. As a person, you may already see in my slide deck, I'm quite creative. I always like to think out of the box. And my aim always in my current job and even in my personal life is how can I quickly solve problems? Because I always think that instead of spending too much time, it's better to just find out the most easiest way and then build up like an agile system and try to keep on solving issues. So why are you here? So I'm not here going to explain what is analytics, what is matrix, what is APIs. The purpose here of this talk is to actually explain why this matters. The key terms here is API analytics, matrix, user feedback, but besides that, there's a lot more to cover. Why I also say a crash course, because this talk is going to give you an insight of what the non-technical people keep on questioning when you launch your APIs. What is the API going to serve? Is it serving the customers or not? Is the customers happy with the API design? And is the customers even happy with the documentation that we offer? So that is the reason I want to focus here more on why it matters. And I'm not going to talk about the different types of analytics. I think the other speakers in this conference are already doing a great job explaining that. So imagine you are from different demographics. So you may be a developer, or you may be someone from the product side or marketing side, and you have already, or you're a startup who wants to start something quickly. So what do? You roll out your fancy developer portal out there. You want more customers. So you have offered the best of your APIs that you have, or you just say, okay, let's sit down for 2 weeks, come up with some APIs, launch it on the developer portal, and then later on put in some marketing jargons, like, hey, we have new API which solves problem X, or you have also used your business jargons by saying that by using our API, you're going to save fraction of your time to get the job done. Besides this, you have received some funding to launch your startup, to launch your developer portal. So you decide, okay, let's just go and launch a nice fancy developer portal. But it's been weeks and months later, you face the most classic feedback. And that is either you're not yet making any money, or you have got good customers, but most of them are hesitant to even sign the contract or even use your APIs in production. The most commonly feedback which I still receive in my current job is the documentation sucks, or the documentation does not have the right endpoints, or the endpoints is working in the staging environment, but the moment it goes in production, something is wrong. Besides this, I've also been questioned frequently is, why did you launch the API? This has been the most common use cases and most common problems that I have to face. Answering about why we are not making money is actually the most difficult job in my current position, because when we look at how APIs are priced, you really need to reach a big milestone to even make that first 100K. But when it comes to no user signing, I think that is already a big challenge, because if you have a nice website, you're putting in money to run the developer portal, and then there are no one even interested to go on your website, then yes, something is wrong. The other thing is also that when you launch your fancy developer portal, out there we have so many partners talking about how sophisticated their software is, and it's free to use. You can plug it easily, and you have your analytics up and running. But most often, companies forget to make use of those analytics and those ready-to-use features that come with the software. And that's where I want to highlight here. Because even in my current company, we use a very, very, very fancy API management, but we keep on forgetting the key essential tools. We have analytics every day feeding us how many APIs are being used, but we actually don't use it so frequently. We think it is useful, but at the end of the day, when we realize, oh, we need to make a fancy presentation for the big boss, that's when we plug in the data. So talking about analytics. Analytics consists of many aspects, and I assume that since most of you are familiar with how APIs work and how these API management system works, I'm pretty sure you have used the most commonly analytics, such as the response time, where's the demographics of the users, is the API throwing errors. But more often, with all the analytics and matrix, what you keep forgetting is the difference between the qualitative and quantitative data. What I mean with qualitative data. For example, if I see that I have an API serving many customers from Asia, then what is this actually telling me? It's not telling me that, okay, maybe my users are from Asia, but maybe it's also giving me insight that this use case is actually solving a problem which is more prominent in the Asian countries rather than in the other parts of the world. Quantitative for me here would be the same API is being called 100 times in Asia, and it's called 500 times in Europe. So it's giving me quantity that, okay, it's called frequently in Europe, but still the feedback that we get of the API is not up to the mark of what the Asian customers are telling us. Together with this, what is the key ingredient that's missed out, and that is the thing that we actually practice frequently in my current company, is setting KPIs on top of the analytics and matrix. So what this means, for example, here, we have an example. How we drive in my company is that when we have the different parameters of analytics, we also set KPIs on our developers and also on the rest of the team to make them understand that the reason if they are developing a particular API is actually just not to launch it and serve a purpose, but it is also maybe business critical, or an API design that has been done now is in the future plan to also have some dependencies with other APIs. I can give you an example here. In my current company, we have launched an API that when you apply for a new bank account, you would get like an Amazon kind of a notification which would say that, okay, we have received your order, and in the next day you would see that your card is being manufactured and now it is processed, and on this day you would receive it with the feedback that yes, you have received your card. Now when we designed this API, for us in the beginning it was the classic way, let's just call it status API and then we launch it. But that was not it. When we were trying to explain this to our developers, they couldn't understand what is the reason of just launching a status API. The customers can just call up and ask the bank, where is my card? Because maybe they want to have a personal interaction and it's a bank card, it's money involved, so no one wants to take that risk. So that's when we started explaining the KPI model behind it. Each member of the department, so from the sales, from the strategy, from business, they pitched in saying that, okay, by providing this API, which has to have a good response time, our customers will not call us, so we can save the cost of the setting up a call center, and we rather invest that money somewhere else. On the other hand side, the other sales team said, okay, make sure that the API is available in these regions because our customers are there and we want the information to be shared quickly rather just taking few seconds and then the information goes there. So that's about the latency. Long story short, what we did is we set up KPIs on each analytic parameter and then set scoring to explain which is the most critical one, which will then make us to get back to that 40% of why we are not making revenue. So if you're not making revenue from API A, how about setting up KPI, putting a focus, and then trying to deliver the API. The next part is documentation. Here, I'll keep it short because later on we have Christoph, who's also going to explain more about the developer portal. But the key aspects here is that you need to make sure that your API is easy to find on your website as well as on a search engine. Besides this, you are using simple to read language, so it should not consist of so many technical jargons that users would get confused, because you don't know how the developer, what kind of programming skills the developer has who need to use the API. And the key thing here is, which we always believe, is that when you launch APIs, make sure that it is already explaining which other APIs are dependent, so the developer does not need to navigate on the developer portal. So I can see I'm running out of time, so I'll be a little quick. But if you have any questions, then please feel free to ask me later. The next is user feedback. Now, this is quite important, because if you don't have customers, you don't have feedback, you're just sitting there wondering what is going on, why I'm not making money, the website is running, what's going on. So when it comes to user feedback, rather working on who the users are from a technical mindset, you could try to approach it from what we do in the product mindset, which is categorizing the different personas. When you know what kind of personas you have, then you can say that, okay, the target for the company this year is to get more standard users using our APIs, and then how can we collect the feedback from those users. So if you have launched the APIs, and you have the analytics data in place, you have the documentation in place. Now what next? Now you can proudly go to your users and tell them, here is your documentation, here is the API. We expect you to sign the contract quickly because our 40% revenue is not coming. What are you going to do about it? And again, with the concept of KPIs, you set up your prioritization to say, these are the KPIs that we want to target, even when you approach your users. Lastly is how you choose to implement. So this might be quite similar. This is same as how you approach any agile team. You choose first what is your highest KPIs. If your KPI is that we need to have at least this much of revenue generating in the next 6 months, then you try to analyze what is the key API which would help you to drive that, choose it, set up a KPI for not just developers, but across the team, and execute, and then you go live. So if you have a target saying that your API should cover so much API revenue, which is where I come into in my current job. So then I need to think, okay, if I need to make 1 million revenue in 1 year, it means I need to have these KPIs in place so that I can make sure that the APIs are automatically bringing in the revenue in the company. Lastly, also, when you have all these aspects fit into one place, then you could do a ratio to say, which one is giving you the good feedback? So in this example, I've used demographics, which says that when my focus was on documentation, I saw that the Asian colleagues were not very open, and they were maybe confused with the language use, but the rest of the world was fine. So then if the documentation is fine for rest of the world, maybe I need to provide the documentation in different languages and not just in English. If the testimonies that I'm receiving is not coming much from the Asian side, maybe it is not to do with they don't like our product, but maybe it is more culture where they might be too shy to talk about it, and then trying to go through your marketing and sales, get them to make talk about that what is wrong with our APIs and why and how we can improve it. So that's all for this short crash course. I wanted to cover more, but I'm running out of time. But the key message I want to give you is you have all the tools up and running in your API management. You don't need to overinvest. You don't need to overanalyze. All you need to do is just make find out your key use cases, and you can really plan it properly in a roadmap to say next 3 months, this is the target, and then start working together as a team. Just creating fancy APIs would not help. Just creating fancy developer portal would also not help, as long as it's not reachable to your customers. If the customers don't use it, then it's just a matter of saying you have an API. But if the customers are using it, you don't need to do marketing because they will do it then for you. So that's all from my side. Thank you, everyone.
So yeah, thanks a lot for your talk. That was really interesting. And one aspect that I especially liked was how you looked at the matrix and the analytics, also in terms of like different user segments. And I think that's an interesting approach. So I think we have time for maybe 1-2 questions. So does anybody want to ask our speaker? Do you have anything, any questions, any comments? Come on,
did you actually follow everything? So I have one question. So how many of you all are developers here? Not many. That's interesting. So how many of you all are from the product side? So I want to ask you a feedback, my user feedback here. So whatever messages I gave, how would you see APIs? What kind of user feedback you would get at your workplace? Any example? No? Okay.
Okay, maybe people are too shy to speak up, or you're
It's
still
fine.
feeling the afternoon slump. So we will probably have a good way to also maybe have a discussion at the end of all the talks in this slot when we have our little panel discussion. And then again, I would like to say thank you, and then I'll pass on to the next speaker.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Then see you around.